Whoa, stop. What? D&D?
What?
I'm always looking for
Yeah,
a D and
dog.
d group. I will totally have the time. I'm unemployed. I'm a 5th level wizard named Merlin with a cat.
I mean, in all realness, coming up here in a couple weeks, I might be looking to start a second game. So
Uh,
if you're down,
I'm hella down.
I'll see if we have any openings at the table.
Yeah.
I don't wanna brag, but I'm a pretty damn good dungeon master.
Shit.
Do you even have the Louis Vuitton sword?
No, I don't have any props. Unfortunately, I'm a broke ass bitch. I can't afford that shit.
Nah.
I have.
Oh fuck. Now?
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Fall to Summer podcast. Tonight we're on the topic of unemployment and everything that comes with it. Let's get into it. I'm here with Merlin, and then you guys can introduce yourselves. We'll start with Kipper.
Hello, I'm Kipper. How y'all doing today?
And hey there, I'm Nikolai.
Hey, I'm
All
Merlin.
right, it's nice to have y'all on. All right, so let's start with some facts about unemployment due to COVID. So, due to COVID-19, unemployment has skyrocketed from 6.2 million in February to 20.5 million in May. It's estimated that we're up to 11% or more in unemployment in the United States. Has anyone here been directly affected by COVID in any way as far as employment?
Me, somewhat
Well,
personally. But go ahead, Nikolai. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
oh yeah, no problem. Personally, in my case, now I even had some ability to predict this because I was working a seasonal job. But even with the time to prepare, finding a job during the midst of the COVID pandemic has definitely been an issue. Um, the fact that there are so many jobs, especially in the services industry, that are currently closed down, it really narrows the job market. Even for positions right now that are still able to hire, there's such an influx of people without jobs right now that have to seek those positions that the overall available market for finding employment at this time is very difficult.
Somewhat, I was about to say, I just moved and I thought it was going to be very difficult also during this COVID time. But right during peak COVID time is where I guess I got the most job opportunities. Now that COVID's kind of ramped down a little bit, it doesn't seem like people are hiring as much, trying to get, people out there as like essential workers, as they call them.
Right, and that's how it is. With some places, there's definitely a pickup in the job industry. Like for example, there are a lot of warehouses that are currently hiring. Shipping is at an all-time high now that people are still experiencing issues being stuck at home and having to quarantine.
True.
In addition to that, many places have switched over to producing things like medical equipment, and that creates a lot of jobs. Unfortunately, the opportunities that are created, though, they don't balance out with all of the jobs that are currently lost at this time.
Lord knows there's so many small businesses that went under. Even one of my favorite pizza chains I used to work for happened to switch owners because of, the hard times with just finding help and trying to get everything out there on time. And then, with the COVID, and trying to stay home and trying to shut down and just be safe for a little while. That kind of put so much of a big dent in so many people's accounts and pockets and cash flow.
Of course, yeah. And I don't know about the areas where you guys live, but I live here in Phoenix, Arizona. Um, moving out here, I saw a lot of small
Melted stuff.
businesses, and I've seen them close, before my very eyes. Like, it's such a regular thing to be just driving down the street and see just absolute lines of buildings. Almost every shopping center having businesses that are just having to close down because they can't keep up with the current economic crisis that's happening.
True, I haven't seen anything like this since like 2008. With that being said, though, that reminds me a lot of the atmosphere of Detroit. Like whenever I went down there's nothing but lines of abandoned houses and abandoned buildings and stuff like that. That's kind of like what I would hope the climate doesn't get to for COVID. But geez, if that's like a precursor to what we can see, what happens after jobs leaving an area, shit, I hope that doesn't happen to America. But hey,
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's an issue that's a real downhill slope. We have currently the unemployment crisis, the economic crisis that's causing both employees and businesses to suffer, and that's also creating a chain effect, creating a housing crisis where people are ending up on the streets because they can't afford their rent, which is just absolutely spiking our numbers for the homeless and unemployed right now.
I don't want to skip over Kipper. Kipper, did you have anything to add relating to the first question?
I'm gonna need you to go first.
I was about to say, I know me and earlier Kipper were talking about economies and how they were doing before Corona, and I think Kipper had a lot to say about like what he thought the economy was looking like beforehand, but I'm not sure if he still wants to say it out loud.
No, sir.
I'll personally say it. I don't mind because, in all honesty, I mean, we can say what we want about the election coming up, but I still feel like the facts are the facts. Donald Trump's America before COVID was looking kind of upwards. The economy wasn't that bad. Jobs were booming. You could not find a job out here, dog. I mean, the opportunities were just too great.
In my personal opinion, I feel like that's something hard to directly tie to his presidency, though. We can't mix up correlation and causation.
True. I mean,
and a lot of the effects that a president puts into line, you don't actually see during their time in office.
Not at all.
Like there's a lot of effects that we felt during the Trump presidency that are leftovers from the the Obama era, and that's not necessarily to say that Trump hasn't achieved anything. I'm not here to just bash on the president.
No, not
at all. A lot of experience that a president can be attributed to during their presidency is stuff that's been coming down the line for a while.
And that can also be said for Obama's presidency, like the 2008 recession. I feel like that was a carryover from the George W. Bush stuff,
Yeah, of course. And that was a really tough administration. We've seen actually a lot of bad things trickle down from the economy, I would say, from kind of the Bush era. And I think that really to fix things the way they are now, we need to pull things back to a focus around the people rather than the corporations.
That's a hard thing to do in 2020.
Yeah, for real.
So what's the next topic, Bex? Sorry about that.
It's all right. I was gonna touch on unemployment a bit and say a little bit about COVID-19 and our economy now versus the Great Recession. The Great Recession happened around majoritively like 2007, 2010. So unemployment due to COVID is substantially greater than that of the Great Recession in a lot of ways. Which is crazy to think about because, COVID is leading us into an unemployment crisis worse than almost any other time in the post-Second War era, which, I know we say it a lot, especially with everything that's happened this year, because I know this year's been a really busy year for everyone, but that's crazy to think about. Like, we're making history right now. I mean, we do that every day. But, like, to this extent, like, to think about, we were a couple years ago, we were all learning in school about, like, the Great Depression and the Great Recession and all of this stuff. We all had to take civics and econ. It's genuinely, like, very surprising to me when I, like, look back on this year and I think about, I was going to go out and knock doors, but a large amount of our customers are, elderly people, and I couldn't go out and do my job because they're so at risk for it. And a lot of people are staying home and quarantining, and you can't really go up and knock on someone's door, especially when your job is to get into someone's home and sell them a product. Like, a lot of people don't like that. And I don't know. I found it very challenging this past year. I didn't end up working. I took the year off because of COVID. But just the fact that this is going to be something that, like, our kids are learning about someday. Like, if any of us have kids,
Well, I have kids personally, so Lord knows. With kids and COVID, it was crazy just trying to teach my daughters the importance of wearing a mask, of always keeping your hands to yourself and not putting your hands in your mouth. For a little girl under the age of 5, it's hard to explain, like, hey, we got to do this just to make sure we stay alive, or what can happen if you don't do that. I mean, when you tell a little kid not to go touch something, most of the time there's some stuff you can show them like, oh, this and this and this happened. But I don't want to go show my kid, hey, you don't do this, you're gonna end up dead. I don't want to go and promote that to my kid. I don't want to put that kind of morbid thought into my daughter's mind so early in life. Even though that's the surreality of just living in America at this time.
Right, and that's one of the difficult things about raising a child in this day and age is you have to figure out how to temper the caution with not just blatantly fear mongering at the same time. I mean, it's a delicate issue to touch on for sure, and along the lines of making history, it has to be pointed out that we're not just making history with the current economic downcline that we're having, but there's also the fact that the pandemic as a whole, we haven't seen any kind of wide scale like global pandemics like this since the influenza outbreak in the early like 1900s. So I mean, there's a lot of things happening all at this one time. The dominoes have kind of finished their tumble, and we're really seeing the cause and effect of everything that's been building up over the last couple decades really coming down on top of the 2019 2020 time span we've been living through.
But here's my real question on like how bad it can really get. Can it get to the level that Germany got to after the war?
Well, I think it really depends on management. And I think we can all agree that the U.S.'s response to dealing with the COVID pandemic has been tragically underwhelming compared to the way a lot of the other world has dealt with it. Countries that really rushed forward and got a grasp on the issue quickly were able to recover, and we see some we even like hear about it more frequently now. Some countries just resuming business as normal, and they're able to do that because they've managed themselves very well. However, we're dealing with things on a state by state basis here in the U.S., which is really dividing us when we need to be joining together and focusing on the issue as a whole. And it's something that's really only just drawing out the problems that we're seeing.
Thoughts, Kipper?
Pardon?
Any thoughts on the subject, Kipper?
No, sir. Nothing that could even go along with what we're talking about tonight.
You sure, bud? I mean, you live in America, bud. You're what they call a youthful teen seeing America go to dust. What happened to the American dream?
Dog, the only thing I'd be able to rant about is the complete and absolute failure of the criminal justice system in America.
Really now? Even during the COVID times, you think they're failing? I think they're doing the best they can, dog. What do you mean? Look at Epstein.
Dog, even during the COVID time, dog.
Jeez.
Epstein is an exception because he's a filthy rich fuck.
Jeez.
Yeah, well, I mean, that the all of the social issues that are happening right now is another one of the things that just makes this a crazy time to be alive in. I know it's not necessarily pertaining to the topics that we're speaking on tonight, but for example, the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement. It's interesting to think about how COVID affected that in getting more people active in social movements like that.
I still feel like, and I know this probably isn't the place to put this down, I feel like there's a big conspiracy theory behind all the protesting and Black Lives Matter at the moment. And just like I guess I'll talk about later in depth when I do bring up the subject of Black Lives Matter and if they're really for what they say they're for. Let's be real, we've all seen Black Lives Matter beforehand with the Trayvon Martin stuff, with the Breonna Taylor stuff, with a lot of other cases. And it didn't seem like they really got any traction until COVID hit. It didn't seem like they really got the power to organize something across the whole U.S. until COVID hit. It seemed like they didn't get the resources until 2020. Even though they've been around for a long time, it's just kind of puzzling that now that everyone's stuck inside, now that like COVID was kind of going down, all of a sudden there's all these protests. All of a sudden everyone's outside, everyone's doing this. And now the second wave hit. Right in time for the election. It's kind of weird.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that it is a domino effect. I don't necessarily believe that the second wave has anything directly to do with the pandemic. I think it has or anything to do with the election. I think that it has to do more with our failure to respond to it effectively.
Yeah. And leadership.
But I do believe that the fact that more people have been stuck at home does make a lot more people focus on those types of social issues, because you can't just look away from it at that point. When you're glued to media, because you don't have your job or errands to run and everything else that you would typically do in your life when you're running on autopilot. When the country is at its kind of normal position. When you don't have that, you're forced to look at issues like this. You're going to be exposed to it, and that's going to force you to develop an opinion on it.
Very true. I know we have another topic, but I do kind of want to go back on the prison system because I feel like that's something that no one has really paid a lot of attention to during Corona. Like, it's crazy how a lot of these people are trapped inside a jail cell with other people who may or may not have it and cannot go get the help or the testing they need to figure out, what's going on, or if they're going to survive to see release.
Yeah, of
Actually,
course, and it's actually really bad in the prison system.
I mean, as of North Carolina alone, as it stands, my most recent insight on the inside of there, they actually split up the pods and all the units into actual medical bays. So everybody is 2 cells apart currently in North Carolina and Wake County. And they are not allowed out of their cells but one by one, and they're all provided with masks and checkups every 6 hours.
Right, but the issue has to be, drawn up to question how long did it take them for to finally make those changes?
Right?
But
I mean, we've seen
that shit in NC happened when it wasn't even in NC yet, when outbreaks were just happening up north.
I see.
And here's my question though: why can't the whole country be so preemptive on
But
getting on top of this stuff? It seems like a lot of our states were kind of late on it. Even Georgia. I mean, I heard about COVID so much, and like none of us had really had any confirmation on it until the mayor or the governor or whatever tested positive, and then we were all like, "Oh crap, it's here," kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's a virus. It's an invisible killer. It's not something that you can necessarily see coming. And with our poor ability to accurately track the virus, because we haven't, put in any implements like contact tracing or anything like that, getting the exact numbers is hard because the only numbers that we have are the ones that are reported by hospitals. And being the type of disease that it is, not everybody that gets it is necessarily going to go and seek out medical assistance.
Very true.
The way it hits some people, they might not even develop symptoms, or their symptoms might not develop to the point where they think they need to go see a doctor.
Without having universal health care, even if you did have symptoms but you don't have health care, there's no way you're going to go see a doctor in the first place. That bill is too much to bring onto yourself right now while trying to juggle bills and unemployment.
Yeah. Especially with the unemployment, housing, and homelessness crisis.
Like
I mean,
we were
that's the
saying,
thing.
dominoes.
It's also tearing its way through the homeless right now. Here in Arizona, we have a lot of homeless, and it's one of the reasons that it's hit our state so bad is because homeless people, they don't have a whole lot of places to go. Those places they can go, they're just openly transmitting it from one person to another, and they can't go seek out medical assistance.
Yeah, Bex, I thought you said something.
Oh, I was letting him finish.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. So, speaking on the government and everything with COVID, what do you believe that we or the government could be doing better to alleviate some of not only the unemployment pressure but just like the financial aspect? Because we haven't received a second stimulus yet, and I've been reading day after day about Chick-fil-A's closing 200 stores, or Logan's is closing, I want to say like close to like 3 or 400 across the US, like permanently.
I can believe that. Jeez. I love Logan's and
So,
all, but the peanuts on the floor? Come on, dude.
I mean, it's a fun niche.
yeah, but what I'm saying is you know, what is it that we could be doing, or like what we believe would be better? Because with so many places closing, a lot of jobs are going with it. Like in one restaurant, let's say at minimum they have like 20 employees, right?
Yeah.
Close 200 stores, then that's definitely gonna add to the pressure of unemployment.
Well,
I think
personally,
that's
yeah, I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
I was about to say, personally, I believe that there's a lot of things that we could have addressed earlier on, and if that we had safety precautions in place for these kind of things, we wouldn't be sitting here in hindsight looking on them. You'd be sitting here look like, okay, but we took care of that. That's not a problem. One thing I do believe, the biggest thing that we just had touched on, homelessness, we have never had a true plan for homelessness, and it just keeps getting worse and worse year after year. And the only solution that our government keeps trying to figure out is how to get them out of our eyesight, not how to really deal with them. And that's the real problem. They're still there just because we can't see them on Main Street. They're still existing. And if we had found a real problem on how to take these people off the streets and put them back in homes, then we wouldn't have that homeless problem of, oh my God, COVID is tearing through the community. Oh my God, there's a tent city in LA. Oh my God. Like, we wouldn't have to say that kind of stuff because hopefully most of these people would be at shelters. Most of these people would be at some kind of commune that helps out homeless people or something like that. There'd be some kind of solution for that. And same goes for businesses. If we had some kind of plans in action for if there was a pandemic. I know, like, we haven't had one in so many years, so why would we be thinking about that? But I mean, look at us now. We should have thought about it. If we
Well,
had,
unfortunately, it's one of the shortcomings of this administration because we did have a pandemic response available provided through the Obama era,
really,
but it just wasn't utilized during this administration. And it left us, being caught with our pants down.
do you believe that's because of
And
politics affiliation?
I do believe that a lot of the COVID issue and our lack of response to it is related to that. It's unfortunately everything is politicized these days, even things that just blatantly shouldn't be. Dealing with supporting people from the ground up, boosting the people that are lowest on our economic runs, trying to provide subsidies and supplements to help the working class, especially the lower class working people. If we had better overall responses to all of that, it really would have helped all of the issues that we're facing right now.
For sure.
As far as Bex, as far as dealing with some of the pandemic issues that we're seeing right now, better unemployment benefits, like what we initially saw when they gave us the $600 boost to unemployment, making that not as limited as it was and continuing it would have been something that would have helped people. But even then, that's not enough for people to survive on. That's not enough for people to be able to continue paying their rent and feeding their families. The stimulus is good, but we can't just settle for a one and done solution. People were able to collect on that, $1,200 stimulus, but then it's been so many months since then, and we haven't seen anything. We haven't seen anything done by the federal government, and that's what we need. We need that kind of strong leadership and union to issue some kind of declaration that provides, some kind of assistance and coverage to all 50 states, regardless of any, political differences. And get a grip on the economic and COVID issue that is currently plaguing our nation.
Very well said. Oh, it looks like we may or may not have lost Kipper there.
Yeah, it looks like we did.
With that being said, we're at 23 minutes. Let's go on one more topic maybe and then wrap it up, and then we'll see everybody back in round 2.
All right. So while we're still on this topic, because if we're trying to keep this short, we might as well.
Oh, let's at
stay
least
on
finish this topic. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. On the topic of stimulus, if you had to choose or you had to say, what do you think the next stimulus package should include?
Not money. Not physical money from the government. I feel like that's where they messed up with this stimulus check. Because now you have people wanting more money. I feel like it should include vouchers for rent. I feel like it should include, I don't know, food stamps for everybody. Or at least some kind of food system where impoverished people that don't always get to the items that are needed, and meat's getting more expensive too, should hopefully get taken care of by the stimulus check. I mean, it should address multiple things that come with living day-to-day life instead of just, hey, here's some money, go live. $1,200 isn't that much. I mean, for sure it may have paid rent for somebody for 1 month, but past that, what did it really do?
Well, handing out free money to people isn't something that's going to hurt the economy. The economy does its best when people are spending. I do think that giving out, continuing to give out a $1,200 stimulus on a consistent basis, on even a monthly schedule of people just consistently getting that free income, I think that would be something that would help a lot. it helps the economy because when people are spending, they're feeding that money into local businesses or even to other places, where they're buying things online. And even if that money ends up going to other countries, then that still improves our situation because it's boosting the global economy, which does affect us, considering we're a major power in the world. That said, that's not enough. I agree with what you said. We do need a lot of other things. We need relief for rent. We just need a freeze on that, a pause, and of course, the government also will provide subsidies to landowners so that they can stay afloat as well. Because obviously, we can't have their properties being foreclosed on. It
For
just
sure
needs to be a
not.
freeze across the board on that. That way, we can keep people in their homes where they're safe, rather than on the streets where they're continuing to, progress the
Spread.
pandemic.
Yes. I was about to say that could have helped us out in 2008 and completely avoided the recession that we went through,
Of
or
course,
somewhat.
yeah, and I've never been able to understand what this fear is with the Republican Party and how they believe that like just giving people anything is a handout and just a complete no go. Providing things like universal health care, like financial subsidies to low income Americans, things like that. They don't hurt the economy as a whole. They boost it. Uh, people are able to work more when they're healthy, and they're better workers when they're able to properly provide for their families.
Very much agreed upon, but I feel like what they're truly afraid of isn't what people are doing with the money. It's what's going to happen to the money once you release too much of it out there. Inflation. It's happened multiple times to our economy beforehand. I mean, look at the dollar right now. It can't buy what it could back when I was 7, and it sure as hell can't buy what it could back when my dad was 7. With that being said, give everyone $1,000 a month. $1,000 sure as hell is going to look more like $100 than $1,000 has looked like in a couple years, dog. And I mean,
Right.
it's not like that's something that we can avoid, because with time it's going to happen anyway. Everything's going to get more expensive. The cost of living gets more expensive. Minimum wage has to go up to fix that. But I mean, it all follows itself. Trickle down economics, essentially.
Right.
But
Well, and see, that's the thing. It's all about where you put that money.
yeah,
Um, and definitely flooding the stock market, like we're currently doing, or flooding the banks, is definitely something that would hurt us. But right now, the best thing we can do is put that money in the hands of the people. If it ends up causing more problems for economic crisis, at least it should buy us enough time to deal with the current COVID crisis, which I'm willing to argue is the more pressing of the two issues at the moment.
somewhat. I'm in a lot of people's mindsets, and it's a shame to say, but they think of it like the flu now instead of like a pandemic. I've talked to multiple people that don't wear masks because I've always wanted to figure out what's their dealio. They know like there's been a big spike even in Georgia, so I'm looking like, why wouldn't you wear a mask? So when I do talk to these stop and talk to these people, I'm usually wearing a mask myself, but they tell me more things like, okay, but it's not going away. We need to get used to it. We need to get immune to it. All this other stuff. We need to build resistance. And I'm like, okay, I kind of get that, but this isn't chickenpox, man. This can kill you without you even showing symptoms like one day, and then the next day you're like, okay, I can't breathe.
Right. Well, and unfortunately, given the age of social media that we live in, it's incredibly easy for people to come across misinformation and then believe it as fact. Everybody should always double check their sources, but unfortunately, a lot of people are not wise enough to do that type of thing, or even committed enough to the issue that they're preaching to go and take those extra steps.
I will
Um,
say
which is
misinformation.
just another reason why we need a large national response to the issue.
That, and we need to cut down on some of this yellow page journalism. It only adds to the confusion.
Of course, yeah, yeah. I mean, there's something to be said about big news as well, because that also tends to be a big problem.
Yeah, but
It's
that's
it's
more like
hard
a
to find
topic from another time.
reliable news across the board these days.
Very true.
But that is obviously a separate issue.
I was about to say that's a podcast all for itself,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah, for sure.
Any
All right. What
closing
time are we at?
remarks? We're at 29 minutes and 25 seconds.
Perfect. Let's cut it here, and we can continue this on part 2.
Well, no problem.
Awesome, sounds great. Well, thank you guys for having me.
I was gonna say thank you for coming on.
We would love to have you back.
Yeah,
sure.
sure. I'd be happy to work that out with you guys.
Facts. And everyone, I'd love to have you guys come back and watch another episode. Whether it be the BEXecution, or whether it be a Merlin time, or just a regular old transitioning without lenses, or MK Ultra. Do like and subscribe and comment, and do check out the merch. It's getting better by the second, they say. It's aging like fine wine. I hope everyone's having a lovely day now. Bye!
Bye.